Well, if you're like me, you are no doubt at least a bit tired of the political ads that we see on TV, we hear on the radio, and we read in the newspapers and online. I only wish the mute button on my TV included a semi-transparent screen that would make the visual aspects of the ads less intrusive. In addition to the annoying audio that streams forth like effluent, it seems like the producers of these television political advertisements work to make them as visually obnoxious as possible, with flashes of light and weird images of photographs that portray the candidates in an unflattering pose. I'm sure that if you're able to look into the planning meeting for a candidate, you would see these people were involved like they would be in a real ground war. I'm glad I never really got involved in the political games people play. It just never seemed, I don't know, honorable. So I backed out from them quickly. Unfortunately, I found that doesn't necessarily end your involvement in that game, because others will use your non-involvement to benefit themselves. And if you are brought back into the game, then you often find yourselves already painted into a corner that you had no involvement with. So then so much time and energy are expended in just trying to clean things up and make them right. It is truly a giant waste of time, and hence my term, political manure-vering. That is not just a modern problem, however. Political games were being played even when Jesus was alive. We hear that the disciples and the mothers of the disciples were maneuvering themselves or their sons into positions of power in the afterlife by chumming up to Jesus as they were walking. And understandably, the other disciples were decidedly unhappy when they found out what they were trying to do. But back to the modern day, I would like to know exactly how many people changed their vote based on these ads, both the kind where the candidate extols his or her own virtues, and those ads where the negative parts, the negative aspects of a particular candidate are pointed out and prove them to be nothing more than scum. The candidates and the anti-candidate organizations must believe they work, however, because I read that they will be spending an estimated $10 billion on the election ads this year. We as a population have been playing political games for as long as probably we've been working together. We can see that in our gospel message today from Matthew. Let me give you another little background information snippet, this time about the gospel lesson today. The Roman Empire invaded Israel around 63 BC and established their rule with a governor who, apart from Caesar, was the highest ranking person in Israel, even above the high priests of the Jewish temple. So as you can imagine, this did not set well with the church leadership. To pay for all that overhead, as well as the exuberant and the lavish lifestyles of the leaders both locally and in Rome, heavy taxes were levied against the Israelites. In addition, a good portion of their tax monies went to help keep the pagan religions well funded in Rome. This drain, plus the fact that the tax collectors were reputed to be cheaters, made that whole taxation situation unpleasant at every level, perhaps except at the top levels of the Roman government. It's not a surprise that the Pharisees and the high leaders of the Jewish church, as I said, were not happy with the Roman occupation at all. There were in Jerusalem another group of people who supported Herod's rule at the time of Jesus. They enjoyed the relative peace and stability that the Roman army and the Roman military presence brought them. Plus, they were making pretty good living, selling the things in the markets with all the influx of people on pilgrimages. Normally, this group of Herod's supporters and the leaders of the Jewish church hated each other and kept their distance because of their differing views on taxation. But they came together united against Jesus. For you see, Jesus represented a threat to the smooth running of both interests. So they decided that it would be in their combined best interest if they put aside their hostilities towards one another and work to rid themselves of this Jesus guy. They put their minds together. Like I said, I would imagine it would be something like a couple of opposing political committees sitting down to combine forces to knock out a mutual opponent. I envisioned that there was a lot of shouting and scarcely bridled anger as these two groups who were normally normally angry with each other, antagonistic, there we go, towards each other, worked to come up with a plan that would trap Jesus. And their question was this: now tell us, what do you think about this? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? The question would be asked with representatives of both camps present. You see, if Jesus said that it was right to pay taxes to Rome and ultimately to Caesar, who considered himself to be a god, the Pharisees could say that Jesus opposed God, the only king that the Pharisees recognized, and Jesus could be arrested for heresy. If, on the other hand, Jesus answered that taxes to Caesar should not be paid, the supporters of Herod could hand him over to the enforcers of the Roman government on a charge of rebellion. They couldn't fail, or so they thought. First, Jesus answered them by calling them hypocrites because of their concern for the law and knowledge they were on the outside, hid the hatred and deceit in their hearts. Then Jesus told them that he knew what their plan was and how they were going to trap him, even before they asked him the question. Jesus then asked for someone to get a coin with which the taxes were paid. You see, in Jesus' time, there was not just one currency, but several, and each currency was used in a specific place. And the coins people used to pay for their Roman taxes were surprisingly Roman coins. And that coin was brought forward, and it was a denarius. And he asked the Pharisees to identify whose image was on that coin. And when they said it was the image of Caesar, he delivered one of his most famous lines, in which he said, well, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. You see, Jesus had come up with a third response that they had not considered. He basically said that we have dual citizenship in the world that we live and in the world that we work. First, the citizenship in the nation requires that we do pay money for the goods and services we receive from governmental institutions. And then second, we have a citizenship in the kingdom of heaven, which requires our obedience and our commitment to God. Jesus provided an answer, you see, that was acceptable to both adversaries when he confirmed as he confirmed the Christian submission to Roman authorities when it came to the running of the government. He basically said, we will have separation of church and state. But you see, Jesus also confirmed the Christian submission. He said that yes, we have an obligation to pay our taxes and to live in our world of business and government. Yet when observed from the priest's viewpoint, Jesus' answer affirms the all-encompassing reach of God's ownership. In fact, Jesus reasserts God's ownership and rule. You see, Jesus is letting us know that to be a good Christian does not require us to have the attitude of a zealot. That is, a person who ignores everything in life except for a life with God. For example, John the Baptist was a type of zealot, solid of purpose to the point of being unacceptable in a social sense. We can, and I think it is right for us, to enjoy the many aspects of our lives that we have while here on earth. Things such as family and friends, and work and times of relaxation. Yes, you do have a duty to the governments, but also remember to give God that which is his. To enjoy the world that he has prepared for you, to smell the roses, to enjoy the sunrises and the sunsets, to look out in the summer of the many hues of green in our countryside and the way it is all transformed by a common layer of white in the winter. It is all part of the gift that God has given us. But in giving to God, we also owe a great debt because of his ultimate gift of Jesus. Maintaining a two-way conversation is important, and we should not forget it. Pray, read the Bible, study and live with love towards others. This is the way that we pay for our citizenship in the kingdom of God. Jesus acknowledged we need to survive in this world. But in doing so, we shouldn't lose track of Jesus' two most important commandments. Love God with all your soul, heart, and mind, and love your neighbor as you would love yourself. And it is with these two guiding principles that we can successfully and righteously navigate as citizens of both worlds.